welcome.
Thank you.
And thank you for agreeing to come to this event. I know you didn't know what you were letting yourself in for. As earlier Sweta said, when is it going to start? And I thought it had started, but I suppose, these things happen.
I think it's part of the trade when something like this happens and the DJ is busy having his beer, so possibly the mic is going to get delayed. No offense, just taking the piss here.
Right. There are a few questions which people have put to me, and so if you don't mind, I'll start at the very beginning. What was your first influence, or when was the first time you actually started playing cricket?
I think for those guys who don't know me, I hail from Chennai, and for every tam-bram over there, the first thing you're supposed to do is either become an engineer or a doctor. And that is exactly what I was asked to do by my parents. Study, study and study. So for me, coming back to, so for me it was all about studies initially. And
I think we're going to swap. Here we go.
At the age of, I think, 10 or 11, I used to play gully cricket as we all do in India. And at the age of 12 is when my father saw an ad for a coaching camp in the summer months. And this was a place called Madras-e-Azam School in Mount Road. And my very first coach was a very, very nice human being called Mr. M.K. Iqbal. And that's how it started. And one of my school captains, he saw me somewhere during the games period, and he said, can you come and join the team? So that's how it started at the age of 11. And in the very first year, I'd gone and attended the Tamil Nadu under-12 trials, state trials, and ended up being in the standbys. And it was tough because there was a guy called Sridharan Sriram, S. Sriram. He's now with the Delhi Daredevils as an assistant coach. He was one of the whiz kids at that point of time. From the second year, I started playing for Tamil Nadu. So that's how it started for me. And my father had always brought me up on Mr. Sir Garfield's service. He could bowl, he could bat, he can bowl left arm spin, seam, spin, catch at slips, keep wickets. So he was my role model, and those were my early years.
Wow.
Now you know what it is.
So I think you basically answered quite a few questions in one. Now, the organized cricket you played was through schools, if I'm correct, yeah? And the state cricket, as we know it here, it's like county trials. In there it was state cricket. And then you went through the ages, as I know, but when you came to the age of 19, you stopped playing state cricket and you went to railways. I mean, if you can just give us some bit of insight into that, please.
Although I hail from Chennai, I played for 3 different states because my father was working with the bank and he had a transferable job, both mum and dad. So after I played for Tamil Nadu, we went to Delhi, and I played for Delhi under 16 and North Zone and all those things. But couldn't make it to the state side in the under 19. But the same year, and again, when I started off as a left arm seaman. That was really, really slow stuff. So really slow stuff. So at the age of, I think 15, when I went to Delhi, one of my coaches, Mr. MP at National Stadium, said that Kartik, you're too short and too puny, too thin. If you're going to continue with this dibbly-dobbler stuff, your cricket is going to go nowhere. And that's where I had to make a call and start bowling left-arm spin. And again, I was not a natural left-arm spinner. I used to bowl darts. And again, right time, right place. Maninder Singh and Vishen Bedi were there, and then they started helping me, mentoring me, coaching me. So it was things like that. So under 19, I couldn't make the Delhi team. But because Maninder Singh was playing Ranji Trophy and Manoj Prabhakar, and they saw me somewhere, and they said, we'll draft him into the Ranji Trophy team. And I've not played for Delhi under 19s. But I was there in the team for a couple of games as a water boy or as a substitute, and then was dropped. So, and that was the time when Maninder Singh told me, he said, Kartik, I don't know how long I'm going to be playing, but as and when I stop, there'll be a guy called Rahul Sanghvi, who's again with the Mumbai Indians now. He said he will make the grade, you won't get it. So it's better that you move teams and go somewhere else. And that was the time when Railways came back.
But it was a bit ironic that you played for India under 19s, but not Delhi. I mean, in reality, you sort of look at it. If you can't make it to the state team and you make it to the national team, that sort of sends out sort of confused signals.
No, thankfully, I had 3 years to make that, because from under 16 to under 19, I didn't play 1 year. And then when I played for Railways, that's when I played for Railways under 19 is the time I played India under 19 as well. And Delhi was a tough place. It still is a tough place with lots going on there. And again, one thing which Maninder Singh told me very early was that for every cricketer, you just need a stage to showcase whatever you have, and then it's up to you. So thankfully, Railways were kind enough to take me into their ranks and allow me to play for 20 years.
Well, playing under 19s India, obviously progression followed. You were called in to play for India. Did you have a notion, or did you hear it somewhere, or do you know what happened when you got the call, and what your feelings and thoughts were, and just the surrounding sort of family, how they took it all?
Look, playing first-class cricket itself is a big thing. I remember, as I was mentioning, and our first Ranji Trophy fees when I was 17. At that point of time, it was 970 rupees. 970 rupees, and I'm going back to 1993, 92, 93. So I was so happy and elated that I went and bought cassettes, lots of music cassettes with that 970 rupees, which I got as my first match fee. Ranji Trophy debut itself is a great feeling, because again, it's funny. You look at the enormity of the situation, whatever population we have, 1.23, whatever number of billion, and then there are so many states, there are so many people who want to play cricket, everybody wants to play cricket, and then you have to go through the ranks. And for every story of success which you hear in Indian cricket, there are possibly 200 stories of 200 stories where players are much better than the guys who have made it, but they still can't make it. So it's one of those things. So I was just plain lucky that Railways came about, and then one thing led to the other. My first game itself, I had, I think, 10 wickets and a hat-trick on debut. And I'd done well in India under 19. I was immediately picked for the A squad against South Africa. This is the time when Hansi and Lance Klusner took 8 wickets in Calcutta. So I was sent on these A tours. So A tours happened, and once you do well, I just had a slight feeling that there could be a chance. And that chance came about when we played a board president's 11 game against South Africa at CCI. And I had a good game, so I had this feeling that might get picked again. You'd still have those funny feelings, and I was 22 at that point of time, so yeah.
So you made your debut against South Africa. Going forward, one of your biggest games where you were man of the match was against Australia, where in Mumbai you took 7 wickets, you were man of the match, and after a long time India actually beat Australia, and that was a memorable game. Subsequently, after about 2 games or so, change of captain. I think Rahul was your captain at the time, and then you got Ganguly, and all of a sudden things went a little bit pear-shaped on the Test career.
No, I wouldn't say it was that way, because the game you're mentioning, I was dropped the next morning. So it was not as if I had to wait a few more games. And again, it was not because of the captain. It was just the way my career panned out. I don't know, I was given the stat that I made 16 comebacks in those 9 years. But I would never blame Saurav, because it's the same Saurav who has played me ahead of Anil and Harbhajan. And for anyone who followed IPL, my first team was Kolkata Knight Riders, and Saurav was the captain there. And then when I went to Pune Warriors and Saurav came and Saurav captain, he didn't allow me to go to Chennai Super Kings during the transfer window. And even the Adelaide Test match which we won, it was not Anil who was playing, it was Kartik who was playing. It was just that I landed the day before, and our then physiotherapist Andrew Leeper said, don't play him because he'll be absolutely jet lagged come day 2. So it was not that, it was just the way my destiny was. It has got nothing to do with Saurav. And I've played lots of good games under Saurav. I've played with him for such a long time. It's just that every time my name comes up, his name comes up as well. That's he did. And one of the funniest things is the patron. Where is he? He has always managed to needle that. Whether during an IPL game, when he comes in for those flash interviews, Sunny Bhai always says, Kartik, you bowled us 2 overs for 11 runs. Why is it that you didn't get the other 2 overs? So, look, Saurav is not to be blamed at all. It's just that that's the way my karma was, my destiny played out.
Well, funny you should say that, because I did ask our patron, well, do you have a question for Kartik? And he sent me this message saying, ask him what he thinks of Saurav's captaincy. So I said, well, if you want, I'll ask, but now I think you answered it, so I can take it back to him.
No, regarding his captaincy, I think one of the best periods of Indian cricket. Everybody says we won under Dhoni and all that. But again, all you guys who follow cricket, if you look at the side he had, the best bowlers, the best batting lineup you can think of, Virendra Sehwag, Lakshman, Rahul, himself, Sachin, Zahir, Ashish Nehra, Srinath, Anil, Harbhajan. So he had one of the best teams. And again, he was somebody who never backed anybody just for the sake of it. And he really had that vision for talent, and he backed them to the hilt. So that way, definitely, all the things which you read in the papers is all true. The way he made everyone believe that we needed to be better outside India, not just in India. So there was a massive transformation under Saurav.
I mean, you played nearly 7 seasons in the UK. 9 seasons, sorry. So, county cricket, you played over 200 first-class games. What is the basic, I mean, what did you personally feel is the difference between playing in India as far as standards or conditions or teammates, or, generally, what is the basic difference between playing in these 2 countries?
I wouldn't compare the quality of cricket, it's at par. As an overseas player, what happens, and I think if teams have overseas players, okay, league cricket, lots of guys are doing other stuff, they're amateurs, and you've got one overseas player. But in county cricket, you could be a Sachin Tendulkar, you could be a Sehwag, you could be a Jack Callis. But what happens within the county is that when you come in as an overseas player, and the fact that they're paying you, they expect a lot out of you. And I mean, not just performance-wise, just meeting the members, being there for them, being the last man standing. And as an overseas player, it's that intensity which you need to maintain from the first week of April till the last week of September. And it can get tough, because as an overseas bowler, these are not great conditions to be bowling spin. So whether it is rain, sun, green wicket, damp wicket, whatever, there you go. We have paid you, come and have a bowl. So it's a question of maintaining that passion, maintaining that intensity. And one of the feelings which they get is that, are you here for the money, or are you here generally to help people around and better their game and do something for the club? So that way it's slightly different. Indians, obviously, you're in your own comfort zone, you're playing with your own teammates. And if you're an overseas player, the teams could be changing possibly once every 2-3 years. So it's different things, and it's run in a very different way, the way the county structure is compared to Indian cricket. Over here, obviously, everybody's got a different contract over there. Starting from a Sachin Tendulkar to the guy who comes into the team for the first time gets the same match fee. So you're on an even keel. Obviously, you can feel the differences here. So lots of differences, but cricket is, obviously, you take the conditions out, it's at par.
One of the things, what I'd like to ask you is, like, we as club cricketers get it in the neck, when we go out and play on a Sunday. Or maybe some of us who play Saturday and Sunday get it in the neck as well, because you're spending too much time playing cricket. So now, you as a pro, what influence does that have, or what happens in family life? I mean, how does Sweta take it when you're sort of going out playing cricket?
Actually, I've directed the question to the wrong person. She should be answering this. It's tough. Yeah, I think it's tough on a family. It's very tough on a family. I think the fact that you're always traveling, and I can understand and empathize with people who have had issues, because sometimes you get homesick, sometimes you're always wondering what's happening. Obviously, you've got so many things happening behind you when you're on an overseas tour, so many things to follow up. There could be some calamity at home or some issue at home with anything, and I just mean anything. So it's tough from a professional point of view. And I remember, because 2003, 2004, I'm walking in at Hobart, and my maternal Nana, obviously Nana is a maternal, my maternal grandfather, who had brought me up from the age of 2 months till the time I was 6 years, he passed away. And I could do nothing about it, because I was walking in, I'd walked in, the team was announced. And I was in the middle of a county game when my Nani passed away, that too back in Chennai. And I was again in the middle of a game when my mother passed away. So these things happen, and it's there for every sports person. Virat Kohli's case is, his father passed away when he was in the middle of a Ranji Trophy game. So as a professional sports person, this happens. Again, your wife is somebody, poor thing, has to take care of not only your mood swings and the fact that how your career is going, the home front. Yeah, she didn't get irritated when I was playing cricket. Now she gets irritated when I'm playing golf. She says over there money came in, over here money is going out.
Actually, just listening to you just there has actually thrown me a bit. I'm sorry, I didn't know.
So imagine Sachin's father passed away when he was in the middle of a World Cup, so he had to come back and it's just the way it is. So nobody's complaining. Sorry. Nobody's complaining. Yeah, it's just that's the way. And I'm just talking about cricketers. And I'm sure that it happens in every walk of life, since we're talking about cricket or any other sport. So that's the way it is. But you ask any sports person, the first thing they'll say is family comes first. You could leave everything for the sake of the family and go back, because at the end of the day, like I'm 40 and I quit playing cricket from all formats 2 years ago, and that happens. And what do you go back to? Who? He can play. I'm done. So it's one of those things. And again, people always talk about the fact that cricketers earn this much and sports people earn that much. But look, a corporate career is taking off at the age of 43, 44. At the age of 36, 34, 35, whatever, depending on how good you are and how you can maintain your fitness, your career days under the sun are done and dusted. So it's, what do you go back to? Family, and they're the ones who are rock solid behind you, whether you've had a good day or a bad day.
On a lighter note, I mean, one thing we noticed about you when you were playing is, like, I think at one time somebody spread a rumor saying that you actually have more pairs of Oakley glasses than the local retailer. Is that true?
It's not a rumor, it is true. Possibly they have to keep other glasses as well. I don't need to. Yeah, it's true. I love glasses, and there was a time when, before I got sponsored by Oakley, there was a time on every tour I would make sure that I found out where the Oakley factory was and organize a 50% discount for the team. And then Oakley started sponsoring me, so I didn't have to do that.
And I might have got this totally wrong, and forgive me if I have, but was there Was there a nickname attached to you, Style By?
That was done by your brother Chandresh Patel. No, it came about during the second IPL in South Africa. If you remember, there was this fake IPL player. So many people thought that I was the fake IPL player because it was coming from KKR, and they said that somebody who's got this sense of humor, not that I have, but people around in India were thinking that it was either me or Sanjay Banga. And Sanjay Banga was sent home by John Buchanan, and I was the only main entity staying and playing there. So all different names which were given to the different players. And I think that's where this Style By thing started, and then Chandresh Bhai has latched on to that ever since that day.
Well, I didn't know he started it. So he's held on to it. Now you're into commentating. But before we go into the commentating, one thing I forgot, when you were picked for the India side, you were also in the National Cricket Academy. You picked for that. But unfortunately, that was short-lived. You got expelled from there for disciplinary. Would you mind telling us why?
Funnily, it was not disciplinary. What had happened was that when I went into the academy, I had a broken wrist bone in my left hand. And it was told to Mr. Hanuman, the late Mr. Hanuman Singh, on the very first day by Andrew Lepus. But he said, okay, it might get better. So what happened was that they were following this Australian theory of training, of bowling. So in a week, we would only bowl 60 balls, 30 balls in one session and 30 deliveries in another session. So I couldn't do that. I was able to do the other things. And then I got picked for the Asia Cup. So I had to go there, played with that same hand, was struggling, came back to the academy. And what had happened was that there were two other guys called Harbhajan Singh and Nikhil Haldipur. So all of us had different reasons. My hand wasn't healing. We had a midterm break for close to 15 days. So Mr. Hanuman Singh wrote a letter to me saying that, Kartik, look, we think that if I keep you here, people will think that I'm being biased towards you because you're an Indian cricketer. So I think that you should go back home and recover. What had happened with Harbhajan was a disciplinary issue because he tore something, he was not picked and he tore something. And then Nikhil Haldipur was somewhat similar. So what happened was that the media clubbed all three of us together. If you remember, again post that Harbhajan and Nikhil Haldipur didn't come back into any stateside or even their own employees were having issues with them. In possibly a month's time I was playing the Irani Trophy, and that doesn't happen in Indian cricket if I've been chucked out for disciplinary reasons.
Like they say, what happens on tour stays on tour, but is there anything you'd like to share with us?
I think it'll still stay on tour.
Right, moving on. You now obviously retired from cricket. You've gone on to commentating. And in the commentary, I mean, what was it like walking in? You know, normally you're out there in the field doing the business, and now you're in the commentary box. And obviously when you go in the commentary box, you see people around you, and they're your elders, they're people who played in the past, and these are guys you probably looked up to or whatever. And what's the feeling like going in there and commenting? I mean, your first commentary?
For me, even when I was playing, I think 2005, 2006 is the first time I started working with TV. And I was not commentating, it was more of match analysis and stuff like that. So possibly 3-4 years before I quit, and that was 2014, 2010, 2011 is the time when I had this opportunity to start commentating rather than just do analysis and stuff. And you're absolutely right, when you are playing, obviously it's a different viewpoint. And I think all of us cricketers have a gripe or two against the guys who are sitting in the comm box, because this is how you're dressed, you're in an air-conditioned box. Suddenly Ashwin might be bowling to Chris Gale, or Ravindra Jadeja might be bowling to Chris Gale, and if he smacks them for a 6, you can possibly talk as if you've never been hit for a 6, or you can put yourself in his shoes and say this is what could have happened. So that is one issue or a sore point which current cricketers have with former cricketers. many of them sound as if we never put a foot wrong. It never happens. All of us have played the game, and all of us have made more mistakes. And there's a stat which says that in your entire cricketing career, you have more days of failure than more days of success. So that is something which you need to realize. And I've again got a few checkpoints, one being my wife and a few others who listen to me. And one of the key things which you want to make sure as a commentator is that you're trying to preempt. Obviously, you think that the person listening at home doesn't know the game, and try and break it down to the nitty-gritty. But apart from that, you need to make sure that if anything, you're coming across as not slagging somebody off or having a go at somebody. And that is something which is very important, is what I feel. You can put across a point without being condescending. And I think that is one big effort, which when you listen to lots of people, you can see that. And coming back to what you said, obviously when you walk into the commentary room, which has got Sunny Gavaskar or Michael Holding or all these guys whom you looked up to, and it is the same when you walk into the Indian team. You've got a Kapil Dev who's the coach, Mohammad Azharuddin, and all these guys whom you looked up to as a young player. So it's the same feeling. The only difference being that the number of people is very limited. It's just 4 or 5 commentators, and over there the number is a bit more. But again, it's a wonderful feeling because you're there, although you're not playing. It keeps you ticking over with the game. And again, one of the key things, as most of the commentators find, is you need to stay abreast with the modern trends, because sometimes you could have played the game, you could have been the best player in 1970s and 80s, but the game is different now. The way people train, the way people look at things is completely different, and you need to stay abreast with all the goings on.
I think what you said, basically, there is a bit of it. I'm not going to keep it too long. Just going to make a point. What you said, I think this also applies to club cricket, but there's a slight difference. I can seriously say that even as club cricketers, we have these players in our league and who have played for the club. I can vouch for my brother and I that we are much better cricketers now than we ever were when we were playing. You know, and so that's what you just said. But the only difference is now when we go to the ground, we are a little bit more abrasive than what you sort of pro cricketers tend to be. So I thank you very much.
That's because you're running aside.
Yes. But Kartik, you've been a great sport. Thank you very much.